Okay, so today's video is a declutter video. We're focusing on blush. This will definitely be interesting. I don't know exactly how it's going to go because I love blush so much, and that wasn't always the case. I feel like I went through a phase for actually a few years where I would wear blush, but I wasn't necessarily excited about it. But I feel like over the past year or two, I got less excited about eyeshadow and more excited about cheek products in general. And I definitely fell in love with cream and liquid blushes, and in the past I would really only wear powder blushes. So I feel like I've discovered so many amazing new formulas I love, and when I look at my blush collection, in my head I'm like, oh, I love all of those formulas, but I'm not necessarily wearing all of them super regularly. So that's why I want to declutter my collection. I want to make sure I'm catching products before they expire so I can pass them along to my mom, my sisters, friends, family. And I definitely like to have options, but I do think I could have a little bit more of a curated collection overall. So last time I counted a while ago, because I was going to film this video a few weeks ago, I think I had over 100. So I don't normally set a number goal these days, but I do think I'm going to aim to declutter like 25 to 30. I think that will be good. I definitely don't want to get rid of like half of my collection because I love these formulas so much. But there are definitely shades in here I'm not wearing, and probably some powder formulas that I'm not reaching for as much now that I have fallen in love with creams. That's not to say I want to get rid of all of my powder blushes. We'll see, we'll see. I need to be a little bit hard on myself with this declutter rather than keeping everything, because I feel like that's probably what I'm going to want to do, which is not typical for me. Usually I'm pretty good about letting makeup go, but I can't help it. I love blush. You know what? I'm going to choose a few formulas I know I'm not decluttering, like my go-to favorite formulas of the moment, and just take those out so I'm not so overwhelmed by everything. I'm definitely not getting rid of my Rare Beauty blushes. I'm actually wearing this one today. I know you can't see me, but I did my makeup earlier because we had some errands to run. I'm wearing the shade Hope, which is such a gorgeous, just like soft everyday pink. This one is probably my favorite. I also have the shade Encourage, and when I first got this, I thought it might be a little bit dark for my skin tone or for what I would normally go for, but I love it. I think it is so beautiful. And then I also have Happy, which is this brighter pink one, and Truth, which is this deeper pink one. I'm also not decluttering my Patrick Todd duos. These are, again, one of my favorite formulas. I have She's So LA. This one is definitely my most used duo. I think it's perfect for everyday wear. This one is She's That Girl. I haven't worn this one quite as much. It's a little bit newer to me, but I feel like this is perfect for the spring. If you're into pink blush, but you don't want something quite as intense as that really bright pink everyone's been loving, this is a good option because it's a little bit softer but still really pretty on the cheeks. And then this one is She's Blushing. It's a little bit rosier than She's So LA, but again, really, really beautiful. I'm trying to think what else is like an absolute must keep for me. Definitely this Merit blush. This one is in the shade Cheeky. I love this formula so much because it's very thin, very creamy, so it's really easy to apply. It looks really natural on the skin. I don't think I'm going to declutter any of my e.l.f. putty blushes. Okay, I'm kind of looking at them. I mean, there's a shade in here I know that I don't wear very often, so maybe I do need to declutter one of these. Let's see. This is one of their Luminous Putty blushes. This is probably my least worn Luminous Putty blush. I think I have 3, and I love them. They're so beautiful. They look glowy and gorgeous, so pretty on the skin, but this is a little bit more intense than I typically go with my blush colors, so I will declutter this one. Okay, I'm not sure where the other Luminous Putty blushes are, but I do have 4 of the matte putty blushes, or just the original ones. So let me swatch them for you because I'm kind of curious what these look like next to each other. So on the left I have Turks and Caicos, on the right I have Bahamas. I think I'm going to keep Turks and Caicos and then declutter Bahamas. I feel like I have other blushes that look like this in a cream formula, but this one's really soft. It's pretty natural on my skin tone, so I do want to keep that one on hand. This one is Tahiti, and then this one is Bora Bora. Bora Bora is actually a little bit newer to me. I feel like I picked this one up randomly when I was on, I think, Ulta's website because it's a really bright pink. I am going to keep Bora Bora, but I think I'm going to declutter Tahiti because, again, I know I have other cream blushes that are kind of similar to this, and honestly, the Luminous Putty blush that I can't find right now, I do think ends up looking kind of similar on the skin. So this one's a little bit newer. Like, look how smooth that swatch is. Well, I guess these two look smooth, but compared to this one feels a little bit dried out anyway. I haven't had it that long, but I feel like because they are cream products, they're going to dry out a little bit faster. But this one went on really nicely. I also have these blushes from Beauty Pie. They're kind of similar. These are the Super Cheek Cream blushes. I feel like they They're maybe a little bit silkier. So I have Fresh Faced, which is like a really pretty peachy coral. This one is called Universal Pink. And then also Sexy Berry, which I feel like is really fun for fall and winter. These are definitely creamier. I feel like they are almost like an elevated e.l.f. putty blush. Like these are just one swipe swatches, whereas with e.l.f. I did build them up just a little bit. So if you're looking for like a more pigmented, creamier version of the e.l.f. putty blush, I think you'll like this formula from Beauty Pie. They feel really nice, very, very smooth, and go on perfectly. So this is from Fenty. This is the shade Peach Face. I don't know if this was limited edition. It's a mini. I got it as part of a set that came with a gloss bomb as well. It's a really nice formula. I would definitely be open to trying additional shades in the future, but I don't wear this color very often. It's just a little bit too intense for my preferences right now. I feel like maybe I'll go through like a big orangey blush phase, but I don't see that happening in the near future, so I'm going to pass this one along. Down here, I have some of my Profusion liquid blushes, or all of them. I have 4 shades. I do wear these. I love this formula. I feel like it's one of the best liquid blush formulas at the drugstore. It's not quite the same as Rare Beauty. Rare Beauty blushes are very, very pigmented, but if you're looking for a softer version of a liquid blush, I do recommend those. So I'm just going to move the other blushes I decided to keep over here as well. Okay, this is from NYX. It's the Wonder Stick Dual Ended Cream Blush. It comes with 2 different shades. I do really like this formula. They only have 2 options, and the other one, I can't remember what it looks like. I feel like, do they only have 2? Maybe they have 3 different options. But whatever the other shades were, they weren't necessarily shades that I thought I would get a ton of use out of, so I just have the one, but I think it's really nice. I think the formula is really, really good, so I do recommend this if you are a fan of stick blushes. I usually just kind of apply it to the back of my hand and then use a stippling brush on top, but I do want to keep that. I have 3 of the Makeup Revolution liquid blushes, which again are very, very beautiful. To be honest, I haven't worn these quite as much because I feel like there are other liquid blush formulas I tend to like a little bit better. They have more of like a dewy finish on the skin compared to some of the other liquid blushes I have in my collection. So on the left I have Peach Filter, in the middle is Dolly Rose, and then on the right is Rose Lust. So you can definitely see that these have a nice glow to them. If you like a dewy finish, I think you'll like the way these look on the cheeks because they do look really soft, very glowy, really pretty, but they're a little streaky. Like you can see that pink one especially, and I didn't even blend it out. I just kind of like swatched it with the brush or the doe foot. But I feel like when I apply them to my cheeks, they lift my foundation a little bit and they can tend to look a little uneven, a little streaky. They're not terrible by any means. I just feel like I personally have other formulas I tend to reach for a little more, including the CoverGirl formula. So I'm going to pass these along. They're still good. I haven't even had them for a full year, but I just don't find myself reaching for them over other liquid blushes in my collection. I think I kind of prefer, I wouldn't say like a full-on matte finish, but not something quite so dewy. If I do want like a dewy or glowy liquid blush, I'll reach for this formula from CoverGirl. I feel like it doesn't look quite as patchy on the skin. It has a little bit more pigment to it, so I am going to hang on to these 2. So I'm going to declutter this one from Ulta Beauty. It's their Stay Cheeky liquid blush in the shade Velvet Rose. It's really pretty, but I just feel like I haven't reached for it over the past year. So for me, that is a sign I need to declutter it. I have other shades that are kind of similar. Like there's a Rare Beauty one that's pretty close to this. So I'm going to declutter this one. These are from Charlotte Tilbury. These are the Pillow Talk Matte Beauty Blush ones. I just talked about these recently. I just don't think these are worth the $42 price tag. I've been able to get them to work for me. The first time I used them, I applied them directly to the cheek and then blended them in, and Again, I felt like they were kind of patchy and uneven. Now I'll just apply them to the back of my hand and then apply them to my cheek with a brush afterwards, and that looks a lot better. On the skin, they do look nice. They're pretty subtle. They're definitely not over the top by any means. So if Rare Beauty is a little bit too pigmented for you, you might prefer this formula. I'm not going to declutter these because I do think I'll probably end up referencing them in some videos coming up this year, but also I do like the way they look on the skin once I get them there. I wouldn't repurchase them and I wouldn't buy additional shades. This color is pretty. They're kind of tricky to work with, which is why I said I just don't think they're worth the $42 price tag, but I do like that finish. That's Pillow Talk. Like those are obviously very soft swatches and you can build them up to some extent, but on my skin, they do end up looking very subtle, really, really natural. I have a few cream blush sticks. So I have this one from AF94, which I really like. This one is in the shade If You Dare. It's a really pretty, just berry tone. It's not too over the top, but you can definitely build it. That's just what it looks like swatched, and then you can sheer it out or build it up. But I love this color. I love this formula. Very soft and smooth and really affordable. I think that one's like $8. This Milk Makeup Blush is in the shade Work. Honestly, I think this formula is nice, but I just don't find myself reaching for this over other cream blushes in my collection. I feel like it is very creamy, very smooth and pretty on the skin, but the color is maybe somewhat similar to that Merit blush. Let me swatch them next to each other. They're definitely different. I don't know why I thought they would be similar. This one is Cheeky, and then this is Milk Makeup's Work. You know what? I think I'm going to pass this product along. It's not a bad product at all. In fact, you're going to see me declutter products that are good products that I enjoy, but it doesn't mean that I need to keep them in my collection because I do have to cut back a little bit. So I'm going to give this to my mom. I've only had it for a few months. I feel like this color would look really good on her skin tone, and I do think it looks good on my skin tone. I just don't find myself reaching for it very often. So to me, that is a sign it's time to declutter it. I do have a few different options from Persona. Let me swatch these next to each other so you can see what they look like. This one is Teddy, this one is Bubble, this one is Jam, and then this one is Kiss. I wore Jam so much during the winter. It's so beautiful on the cheeks. It looks absolutely gorgeous. I also love Teddy. Bubble is really fun. I've been getting into this color. I wouldn't say I'm quite as obsessed as the internet as a whole seems to be with this shade, but I do think it is fun, especially for the spring. In my head, like I think I want to wear Kiss a lot, but I don't know, I'm not like a big red blush fan. Because my skin tends to be red toned overall, when I apply like a bright red blush, I feel like it just defeats the purpose of foundation for me. So I'm going to declutter the red shade Kiss. It's beautiful. If you have a deeper skin tone or you love a good red blush, I feel like this would look amazing on you, but I'm going to keep the other three. You know what? I think it's time to part with the e.l.f. bite-sized blush duos. I loved these so much. I got a ton of use out of these over the years. Is this one even open? It is not. I think I repurchased this for a video that I was going to do, and then I didn't actually end up using it. So I'm going to donate this one since it is unopened. But I am going to declutter these other four. I really liked these, and honestly, they did get some mixed reviews when they first launched. But when I think of e.l.f., like I do think of their putty blushes. I tend to reach for those so much more. I don't think I've worn these really at all in the past year. And to me, that is a sign they need to go. If you do like a good powder blush or like a blush highlighter duo, then I think you'll like these. They're definitely a little bit more, I don't want to say they're like a dry formula, but the powder formula does look very matte on the skin. So if I wanted a glow, I would mix together the powder and the highlighter, or I would use them separately, but I did love these for a long time. I just no longer reach for them because I am more so into creams and liquids these days. Along the same lines, I think it's time to declutter these Cover FX duos. I've had these for a really long time. I don't know that I would say they're expired, but I also haven't used them in a really long time to know for sure. But based on how they look, like the actual color or the texture hasn't changed at all. These were actually sitting in the background of my video, I think at like my old house, so I completely forgot about them because they were just in the background and I wasn't reaching for them very often. And then when we moved, I actually put them back in my makeup collection, but I haven't used them at all in the past year. I did see on Instagram a little while ago that Cover FX is actually making a comeback. I believe they stopped selling products or they stopped restocking for a while, but they said they are going to kick things back up. So if you are a Cover FX fan, that could be good news. I loved these, again, for years. They were probably one of my favorite formulas, but I just haven't used them. So it is time to part with them, sadly. Like, I want to hang on to them, but I have all of these other powder blushes, and there are formulas in here I actually use regularly. Okay, so right here I have my Tower 28 blushes, which I love, but you know what? There is a shade that I don't reach for very often. Because I talk about these a lot in videos, I feel like I'm always using them, but realistically, I'm not wearing the shade Power Hour super often. So I have Magic Hour, Office Hours, and then Power Hour. Let me swatch them. So on the left I have Magic Hour, in the center is Office Hours, and then on the right is Power Hour. These are so pretty. They're very rich, super pigmented. So if you want a cream blush that shows up really well, that actually stays in place, this is perfect. Like, this is definitely one of the longest lasting formulas I have. So I'm going to keep what was this, Magic Hour and Office Hours, but I am going to declutter Power Hour. I can get a lighter, more sheer application, but typically it does look pretty intense on the cheeks. This formula from Milani is pretty similar to Tower 28, but I would say it's like slightly creamier and not quite as long lasting, like pretty close though. If you're looking for an alternative that's less expensive, I would recommend the Milani Cheek Kiss cream blushes. This one is Nude Kiss. And then I also have this one, which is Blushing Berry. I am going to keep both of these. I think these are so pretty. These are from the brand Into You. I think the design is so cute. It's like a little bottle cap design. If you like cream blush, but you don't want anything too rich or too pigmented, this is a really good formula. So these are not as richly pigmented as like Tower 28 or Milani. My favorite is this one, but let me just show you the other one. Or wait, this one is my favorite one. This one is like that brighter bubblegum pink, and then this one is a berry. So I'll show you like a light soft swatch, and then I'll show you what it looks like built up. On the left is one swatch, and honestly, if you go in with a really small amount and really blend it in, it almost looks a little bit more matte or natural on the skin, whereas if you build it up and really layer it on, it has more of a satin finish. But I do enjoy these on days where I want more of a natural makeup look. And then these are from the brand LYS Beauty, which I love. I got a little set during the holiday season that actually came with 3 mini blushes. So I'm going to keep these as well. They definitely make one of my favorite formulas. I do have one full-sized LYS blush, and I feel like this has dried out a little bit. It's the Higher Standard Satin Matte Cream Blush, and I have the shade Kindness. I feel like when I take my finger and just kind of like mix it up a little bit, it almost like reactivates the formula. But on the skin, it feels a little bit dried out like when I actually apply it. These are definitely interesting. Like a lot of cream blushes are super glowy, but if you want more of a satin or matte leaning cream blush, I do recommend this formula. And then last cream blush, I have this one from Tarte. This is the Breezy Cream Blush in the shade Peach Sunset. I got this one in a BoxyCharm and I love it. It is so, so beautiful. And I went online and they do have additional shades, but they don't have a ton of options. I wish they would come out with more because it just looks very smooth on the skin, really, really natural. Maybe I'll declutter the LYS one because I feel like this shade is something I reach for a little bit more because this is maybe slightly orangey. I mean, I do like this shade and I like this formula, but now that I'm looking at them side by side, I feel like the finishes are very similar. The colors are pretty close. And because I have those other LYS blushes, I think I'll keep the Tarte one. I do wear the Tarte one a lot and maybe declutter this one. Actually, I forgot about these. I have a few of the Flower Beauty blush bombs. These are so interesting. I feel like this was my very first liquid blush that I ever tried. And I still feel like this is one of the best formulas. It's so creamy, very luminous on the skin, very, very easy to work with. Even when I wasn't really into cream blush, when I was more into powder blush, I still liked this formula. I actually think this formula might have expired because look at the difference between the two. I know that I purchased this one not recently, but it's definitely newer than the other one. And this one is a little bit thicker and more matte, and this one has more of like that dewy glow. So I do think I'm going to declutter Nectar and keep Pinched. On the left is Cinnamon, and then on the right is Bitten. These are still good, but you know what? I don't think I will really wear that shade Cinnamon a whole lot. I do want to keep Bitten because I feel like it's very unique, and I obviously went in with a lot, but the tiniest amount just looks really pretty, really natural on the skin. I have 6 ColourPop Super Shock blushes. I love these so much. I cannot get enough of them. I've actually been wearing them a lot over the last few months, so I'll show you the shades and then I'll swatch them. This one is called At First Blush. This one is called Sounds Grape, and then this one is No Way, which is a little bit more natural. They're so gorgeous. Like these are definitely 3 of my favorites. On the left is No Way, in the center is At First Blush, and then on the right is Sounds Grape. But they give your skin the most beautiful glow. They sit on the skin in such a pretty way. Like you can just tell they're incredibly smooth, very, very gorgeous. I just apply them with, a lot of you guys ask, I typically use almost like a foundation brush, just a little bit more of a dense brush and typically something that's almost dome shaped, and I feel like that works perfectly. Actually, e.l.f. has a brush. I just repurchased it. I think it's called like their Complexion Duo brush. It kind of looks like an IT Cosmetics brush. I use that one and that works perfectly. I'll link it below. This one was part of the Tinkerbell collection. I think I will declutter this one. This one's in the shade Darling. I feel like it's not the most flattering shade for my skin tone. It's a beautiful color, but I feel like it's maybe a little bit too red toned for my preferences. This one is called Brute Flute, which I love. I've had this one for a while, but it's still good, thankfully. And then this one is called Cheerio, which is pretty intense. So I have Darling, Brute Flute, and then Cheerio. I am going to declutter Darling. It's a little bit softer on the hand than it is in the actual pan, but again, I just don't reach for that one very much. I am going to keep the other 2 though. I really do wear all 5 of these Super Shock blushes quite a bit. So I cleared out an entire section of blush, which I feel like is pretty good. So let's move on to powder blush, and then I have a couple of random ones in the back I'll share with you. I guess I'll kind of do the same thing with my powder blushes. So any formulas I know for sure I'm not going to declutter. The first formula that comes to mind is this one from Milani. I love the Milani baked blushes. I have a few different shades. I have Rose Dioro, which is a gorgeous color. It's kind of like a bronzy, rosy toned blush, perfect for summertime. I also have Luminoso, which is just a tried and true favorite. I love this one so much. And then I have Sunset Passion, which again is kind of like a rosy, almost like bronzy toned blush. So, so gorgeous. So I am going to hang on to these. I'm also not decluttering these. These are from Essence. They're the new Pure Nude Baked Blushes. I love these. These are super affordable. They look amazing on the skin. I know I've talked about them a lot recently, but I just love them. I find myself reaching for them over high-end blushes. I'm not decluttering these Bare Minerals bronzers. I loved these so much last summer, and I've actually been wearing them a little bit more lately now that spring is here. This one is Kiss of Pink. I will say there are other formulas in my collection that come pretty close. Like I feel like Milani and even those new Essence blushes do give a very similar effect on the skin. But I still love these. I think they're gorgeous. This one is Kiss of Copper. Okay, and then the opposite. Are there any blushes I know I can definitely declutter? Yeah, I feel like I could declutter this one. This one is from JCat Beauty. It's the Love Struck Blush and Bronzer. I actually bought this because a few people said this is a really good dupe for the Bare Minerals bronzers. And I don't know, I just didn't find that to be the case. It could be the shade I got, but it is so subtle on the skin. And I don't know, it's missing the glow that the bronzers give. I have the shade Honey Bunches. If you're just looking for kind of like a soft, lighter neutral, and you do have a lighter skin tone than me, I think this could be a really good option for you. It's just not the same formula as the bronzers in my opinion. So I'm going to declutter this one. I just don't reach for it. I'm also going to declutter this one from Ulta Beauty. It's the Flushed Blush, and this one is in the shade Flamingo. It's pretty, but again, it's just not something I reach for very often. It looks pretty on the skin. Like it definitely has a little bit of a glow to it, but it also looks a little bit dry on my skin. Like it enhances the texture. It's not the most flattering formula. So I would say if you deal with any sort of texture or dryness, you might want to skip over this. I'm actually also going to declutter these Flower Beauty blushes. I like these. And again, I am decluttering some formulas I actually like. I just don't reach for them as much as other powder blushes in my collection. This shade is probably a little bit more intense than I typically go. And when I do wear like a deeper berry, I usually like a cream formula because I feel like it's a little bit easier to blend out compared to a powder. If you go in with too much powder, it's harder to kind of erase that. But with a cream, I can always go over it with like my foundation brush or a little bit of concealer. So I don't find myself wearing this shade very often. This one is Spiced Petal. Spiced Petal is maybe just like a little bit too natural for me, or no, too matte for me. When I wear a powder blush, I usually like for it to have some sort of glow. Otherwise, it can look too matte on the skin. And there are some matte formulas I like, but again, these are good. I don't think there's anything wrong with them at all. I'm just not reaching for them a lot. So I'm going to pass these two along. I do think it's time to part with these blushes from Catrice. I have loved these so much. I've talked about them a ton on YouTube, on Instagram, on TikTok, because I do feel like they're very, very similar to Hourglass blushes I own. But the last few times I used them, neither one of them felt the same. Like they weren't performing as well. So I feel like they have expired. Like even if you look at it, it kind of looks a little bit dry. Like the actual color has changed, the texture has changed, and it doesn't apply or wear the same. So to me, those are big indicators that it has expired. But I will say I got a ton of use out of these. I was hoping ever since they launched these that they would come out with additional shades, but they still, I think, only have the two, if they are still available. If they're still available, I do recommend them. I'm not going to run out and repurchase them because I do feel like, again, I have other blushes that give a similar effect. The new Essence Baked blushes are pretty close. I have other Hourglass blushes I like, but I felt like these were a really good alternative to Hourglass because they give you like that glow, but they're not necessarily shimmery. Speaking of Hourglass, I've definitely had these for longer than Catrice. I mean, I think by like actual industry standards, I probably should declutter them, but they're still good. I wear them fairly often and they definitely apply the exact same as they used to. So I love these. This one is Brilliant Nude. It's very, very natural on my skin. So on days where I don't want to wear blush, but I want like a little bit of a glow, I'll reach for that one. I love this one, Euphoric Fusion. It has like a really pretty berry tone to it. The interesting part about these blushes is they have like a marbled formula, so they almost look a little bit different every time you apply them, which is not usually my favorite thing when it comes to cheek products because I want to know how it's going to apply. Look how pretty that is. It just gives your skin such a beautiful glow. They look so natural. This one is Mood Exposure. You know what? I am going to declutter this one. It's a mini. I feel like this one maybe has expired, or maybe I'm just like very close to hitting pan on this because it does not apply the exact same as the other ones. I also have Mood Exposure over here in another palette. I don't think this palette is available any longer. I think I got it, I want to say from Nordstrom, maybe Nordstrom Rack a while ago, but this is Mood Exposure. This one is Surreal Glow and this one is Luminous Flush. This is getting older. I feel like it's not going to last a lot longer, but it's still good for now. I love this palette. I've used it for a long time at this point, but I just love the colors in here. So I'm still going to hang on to this one while I can. The last two Hourglass blushes I have Ethereal Glow, and then I also have this one, which is Dim Infusion. I am going to keep these two blushes from Too Faced. These are pretty new to me. I did talk about these again in my March favorites and fails. These are the Too Faced Cloud Crush Blurring Blushes. So this one is the shade Velvet Crush, which is just like a really pretty kind of everyday rosy neutral, and then this one is Candy Clouds. But this is like that bright, intense pink that everyone is loving right now. So these are pretty new to me. I am going to hang on to them. I'm also going to keep this RMS Beauty blush. I have the shade Maiden's Blush. It's so gorgeous. So if there isn't like a bronzer shade that works well for you, but you like the idea of like a pretty glowy blush, this is a gorgeous option. It feels good and it looks so smooth on the skin. I guess I did declutter some of my powder blushes because I decluttered the e.l.f. duos and the Cover FX duos because I'm sitting here thinking like I'm really not getting rid of very many powder blushes. I need to declutter some. You know what? There is a Melt shade that I was thinking about possibly decluttering last time I used it. So these are their Digital Dust Duo blushes. This one is Raw Honey. I will never declutter this until it expires. It is so beautiful on the skin. It's like a blush highlighter combo. It just looks amazing, very smooth. So I am going to declutter Queen Bee. It's beautiful, but I just don't find myself reaching for it. I think when I bought it, I was maybe like self-tanning. There was a summer where I was using self-tanner quite a bit, so I liked having like different shades like this, but I can't remember the last time I used self-tanner. So this is definitely just a little bit too intense for my skin tone right now, but it is an amazing formula, so I'm going to pass it along. I really haven't used this M Cosmetics blush. This is their Heaven's Glow blush in the shade Faded Clementine. It's so pretty. Like every time I use it, I think it looks so good on the skin, but I don't use it, and I don't know why. Maybe because it pulls like a little more orangey than I'm typically into. I don't know. I feel like the Milani Luminoso blush gives a similar effect, but they're not the exact same. I personally like the Luminoso shade a little bit better on me. I think you can probably even just tell from the swatches. Like Luminoso looks a little bit better on my skin tone. Faded Clementine is gorgeous. Like the actual formula is so nice, but I just don't use it, so it's time to declutter it. These are from JCat Beauty. These are the Blush Mellows. They are really interesting. So I bought these because I watch Vianney Strick. She is one of my favorites, and she was using these in her video and just saying how much she enjoyed them. So I bought two shades. They remind me so much of the Item Beauty blushes, which have those completely been discontinued. They're not on Sephora's website any longer, and I don't think they're on Item Beauty's website. I don't have exact shade matches, but if you've tried the Item Beauty formula and you like it, I feel like you'll like these. And these are more vibrant. You can use the lighter hand to kind of sheer them out. I'll do a little bit more of like a softer sheer swatch. But even based on like this swatch, you can see how vibrant they could be. Like you could definitely build them up to be really intense as well. The Item Beauty blushes, I love them. I'm so sad Item Beauty's not at Sephora anymore because I feel like the quality of the brand was really nice and the price point was pretty good. Like I think most products were under $20. And these blushes are so beautiful. Like they're just very smooth on the skin. But the JCat Beauty blushes are really, really similar. These are maybe slightly more glowy, but I don't know. On the skin, they look pretty much identical. But like I said, I don't have exact shade matches. Just a very, very close formula. I'm not going to declutter these blushes. These are from Essence. They're just called The Blush. They're gorgeous. I talk about them a lot. They're very soft, really, really smooth, easy to apply. These are from Buxom. Seychelles is like one of my favorite blushes of all time. It's so pretty. Again, very smooth on the skin, but it has a little bit of a glow. I've been wearing that one a lot lately. This one is Mykonos. I'm going to keep this one. It's kind of like a peachy coral, and then this one is Dolly, which I also like. It's just a little bit more of like a berry tone blush. I'm not getting rid of my Persona blushes either. This one is Terracotta. These were just on sale during Ulta's 21 Days of Beauty, but I heard they sold out so fast. Like some of you guys were saying like right after midnight, they pretty much sold out. This one is Bubble. And then this one is Georgia. I think they're worth it even if you pay full price for them. I originally bought Georgia and I think I did get it on sale. I think it was during a 21 Days of Beauty or maybe it was during a different sale, but they're amazing. They're very pretty on the skin. Really gorgeous. So is that it? No, I have a few back here. I have this e.l.f. Electric Mood Quad. I feel like the formula dried out just a little bit. I don't know that I've had it that long, but it's just not quite the same as it was when I originally got it, so I am going to declutter this. This is a 3-in-1, so not technically just a blush, but the Ulta Beauty cheek palettes are so good. I do think this formula is very similar to Hourglass. If you like that very like undetectable powder feel, then you'll like these. This one is in California Sunlight, but they have 2 other options as well. I love this one, especially when I am going out of town. I feel like it's perfect. I'm going to declutter this little Kaja trio. This is their Butter Up Play Bento Blush and Bronzer Trio. I was testing this out and I do like it, but again, I just feel like I have other options that I tend to reach for over this. I've only used it a few times, so I feel like I'd rather just pass it along instead of just letting it sit here in my collection going unused. My Natasha Denona Bloom Blush and Glow is still a favorite. I love this. I think it's so pretty. For some reason, I always just like pull this one out during the spring and I want to wear it every single day. I like the cream blushes. I think they're pretty. And I also love these powders. This looks really pretty as a blush. This is gorgeous as a highlighter. So I'm definitely going to still keep this one. I have this Milani Cheek Kiss Cream Blush palette. I love the Milani Cheek Kiss Cream Blushes. I think they're so beautiful. But this palette is almost... it's like a little bit better than the singles for some reason. I don't know, maybe it is the exact same formula, but when I wear it, I feel like it just applies like, it's a little bit easier to apply. Maybe it's a little bit thinner. I think that's what it is because it layers so nicely on top of powder. Whereas when I wear the single ones, those I usually do put down under powder. I don't know, these days I do wear my creams under powder usually rather than trying to apply them over powder, but the Milani product can be applied either way. Last thing, I have this Cotton Candy Champagne Blush Lighter palette. It actually had like this cute little like fluffy pink design on here, but mine kept getting like pulled off because this was laying under other products. This is one of the most gorgeous blush formulas I've ever tried. If you love a glowy blush, you'll like this formula. It's called a blush lighter palette for a reason. Like they can be worn as highlighters or blushes, but look how pretty. If you love like a very intense blush, you'll absolutely love this. I feel like it's so underrated. I mean, you guys are actually the ones that told me about this. I forget what we were talking about. I think we were talking about glowy blushes and a ton of you recommended this. So I actually went online and ordered it. I'm so glad I did. It's amazing. Okay, I'm finally done. Let me reorganize this and count everything and I'll see where I'm at. So here's what my collection looked like before. I started with 112 and here's what it looks like afterwards. I was able to get rid of one of these containers and then I have a little bit more space in this one, but it's good because I feel like I'll put the palettes over here and it's not quite as cluttered. I still have a lot, but I do feel good about my current collection because I genuinely enjoy all of these formulas. They're so beautiful. So I have 78 blushes in here. These are the blushes I'm decluttering. I'm getting rid of 34. I feel good about that. Honestly, when I sat down to film this declutter today, I was like, I don't want to part with any of them. But now that I'm looking at the blushes in this container, these are definitely shades I wasn't reaching for. Like I can't remember the last time I wore some of these. And I feel like they kind of get lost in the shuffle, which is why I like to do this at least once a year and just kind of pull out products I'm not using so I can pass them along. So I am happy with my blush declutter. If you guys want to check out some of my other declutter videos, I'll put some other ones on the screen for you that I've done recently. And stay tuned, I'm doing a new declutter video. I'm doing like 2 a month. So if you like declutter videos, I would love for you to subscribe so you don't miss any of the upcoming videos coming your way soon. But thanks again for watching. I'll see you very soon with a new one. Bye.